This is about the session, and then I get to my part just a little bit after there. This session is about production, something that you can do at your home farm and other scales and things like that. We're not going to light any fires here. We do that stuff tomorrow.
Tonight. We do it tonight, too.
We're lighting tonight also out there as we're getting set up so that we don't make total fools of ourselves when we're lighting them tomorrow. Okay. Expecting here to be teachers, educators, experimenters, gardeners, and others. How many here are teachers? Your active educational component. How about experimenters? You're into that type of stuff. You want some designer char or something. Gardeners, you want this stuff in the ground, okay? And anyone supportive of cook stoves? They're a real cook stove aficionado. There's a few into all of that. Wonderful. So we can trying to link into there. These sizes of the pyrolytic devices, everything from micro to gigantic. And I will be going through these with examples later on there. At the lower list it says other presentations, the medium sizes, atom retorts, and on up. You can find those in the other sessions, okay? But we will come back to all of those. I wanted to point out, though, that size is important. This is a slide that I only changed slightly because it talks about successful stove projects. And we're not a stove conversation here. Is this mic doing the right way? Or you can hear me?
Doing anything.
No, you can hear me.
Oh yeah, you're projecting well.
Yes, 30 years in the classroom will do this for you.
And take it on, but yeah.
See, now it's like the Wizard of Oz, the big talking green head. Silence!
Ignore the man behind the curtain.
Exactly.
I will take an extra 15 seconds because, no, okay. All right, so instead of emphasizing, but see, fuels, combustion device applications, and human factors, and I changed it here. The essential components for a biochar project. These are your feedstocks, call them fuels otherwise, and this is the source of your carbon. The pyrolysis technique, because it's only with pyrolysis that we're going to get it. The physical circumstances, part of it's the device and structures that's coming together, including sizes. And of course then the human factors, whether you're doing it in third world countries or in some fancy neighborhood and everything else. This group, I believe, is knowledgeable about pyrolysis, which is the counterpart of carbonization, two sides of the same coin. And you are getting this from carbohydrates. There's no hydrocarbons in it. That means there are oxygen molecules in the fuel. It is an endothermic process which requires not a lot, but it does require some energy coming in. You can't just turn it off there. Two types of things. Anoxic, meaning that there is no oxygen present, really basically no air into there. You're putting external heat onto there. There's no flame in the biomass, and this is characterized by the retorts, and they deserve definitely their part of the attention. Oxic, the flame is present. In a regular fire, you have pyrolysis, char gasification, and the combustion of those gases that come off of it. And they're all occurring almost simultaneously in the same space. A gasifier, there's the separation between these 1, 2, and 3, which are listed there, and then there's multiple types of gasifiers, and we can talk about that. Gasifiers, dry biomass, combustible gases, distinctly and controllably separate in time and location. You make the gases, the pyrolysis, one place, and those gases move somewhere else. It might be a matter of a few inches, it might be a matter of a couple seconds, or it might be something which is staved up and stored and it's meters away and things like that. But there is that separation. If it's not being separated, you don't really have a gasifier. You can have gasification, which is a process that occurs in all this combustion stuff, but a gasifier, you've got them separate into there. Several types of these these different types, and their chars can be different. I've characterized these into just 3 of them out there, downdraft, updraft, and top lit updraft, to try to clarify some massive problem on this thing. A downdraft gasifier, the fire is at the bottom. When it's operating, I don't care where you lit it or something, it's functioning, the fire is down there at the bottom. In a traditional updraft, the fire is at the bottom, and there's other characteristics. A top lit updraft, you light it at the top and the pyrolytic front migrates downward during the batch. And that is the only time that it is operating in its TLUD mode. Now, when I named this in 2004, I wasn't smart enough to have called it a migratory front pyrolytic stove and stuff, okay? But that acronym would have been terrible, okay? But we're stuck with TLUD is what people think. But when they say a TLUD, it's top burning. And they think of this, the fire that's burning up at the top of that stove is burning the gases. The TLUD refers to where the gases are created, and this is this front that's moving downward through it. A downdraft gasifier, it's at the bottom, and it's bottom lit, and it's staying at the bottom, and it's not going to go up. And the same way with an updraft gasifier, the fire is at the bottom, and it acts where the oxygen comes into it and everything. But in the migratory pyrolytic front is the most distinctive characteristic about this particular stove. And then it's different comments about into there. A couple other things which I want to mention is that the pyrolysis occurs in a TLUD, almost all of it, and there's almost no char gasification, burning consumption of the char, because it's any of that air coming in, it's reaching gases and burning that, and so the pyrolysis all accumulates. It's not like trying to save it or minimize the char gasification. It's a very unique aspect of this process. A retort also, it's not burning any of the carbon into there. It's driving off, and you're going to get the charcoal. But most other, as far as I know, any other combustion regime is not going to give you so much of the benefits of the pyrolysis without the negatives of burning off some of the char. All of these slides and stuff, they're going to be circulated out, they're on the web, and so that's why I'm going through it. Now I'm at the start of my talk on mine, which is on the small side, and I can go through it much more quickly because I've given the background, which also relates up to what Drs. Frogner and Taylor are going to be doing, okay? And a couple things there. The abstract, which didn't make it into the program, said this, so I really don't have to speak directly to it, but there is a cook stove movement on for 100 million stoves into the developed countries by the year 2020. It's a major movement, and it isn't nearly fast enough for us with regard to the biochar focus, and this is why we're getting into the distributed low technology types of things. It happens that the cooking stove gives an use for the heat, and in this stove, we end up with char. The stove people, for the most part, they're not anti-char, they're just ignorant, agnostic about char. They don't really care too much about it. So we got to bring this message to them with regard to that. So, and we'll see some more of this stuff at the field day there. This diagram into here, it's Doris, right? Your show, replace anything that I've got here, and I will show her video with the movement and on down through it. I think you've got the idea by now as to how this thing operates, okay? There are many different types of microgasifiers, and TLUDs do make char. I'm just going to get back to the other parts in here. Glowing pyrolysis to primary air. And all biochars the reference at the bottom all biochars are not created equal. This was a paper which is out there, and it has a section in it about the TLUD stove and how its biochars can be altered and improved or enhanced, etc., by controlling the airflow. Gasifiers, especially the TLUDs and stuff, they are air-controlled stoves, air-controlled devices. When you're looking at other types of cook stoves and things, they are fuel-controlled. 2 sticks in is twice the fire of 1 stick in, and then put in 4 sticks if you want a bigger fire still. Here we shut down the air, we bring on more air, and you can almost make these things stand up and walk and talk for you by controlling the air. air for primary, which is going to give you how much gases are being produced, and air for secondary, which is going to control the combustion of what's coming off of those gases. Now we're into the size. This is the same slide that was up there at the front, but I've got two listed out here: tin can TLUDs, soup cans and bean cans, and 1 gallon paint cans, and just a few samples of this. At the bioenergylist.org website, if you have never been to there is a massive amount of information out there. I think now you need to put the stoves word in the front of it, but they have lots of things there about the TLUDs. And this man named Richard Boyd made a 10-can tin can stove. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying it's been around. He did that back in the 90s. Okay. Another one, the Willie 1 can in the stove factory. Okay. You can make them out of simple little cans if you want to do a simple study and stuff like that. The comment that was made that some people thought that these high school students could not produce a functional TLUD, excuse me, functional TLUD of some type that can be made up in a whole variety of ways, and there's ways simpler than that even, including this one. This is Hughes, the Toucan stoves. That is 2 cans, all right, and very nice. We have this also at the demonstration that we'll have, and we'll light it up, and you make this out of a paint can and a number 10 tin and stuff like that. It's really nice. You got to the line that says Hugh can barely count past 1 on a good day. Thank you very much. I'm glad anything I can do to get back at Hugh is fine. And the freaking 3-can stove, and there's actually a comedy paper that's put out on the stoves thing where there is a 5-can stove. That's the penta-can stove, but I can't tell you about it because I'd have to, never mind. All right, we've got all kinds of stoves, but let's get past that. These are tin can items. The term tin canium is coined with regard to this stuff. It can be done. An excellent one. This is from Kelpie, and she has it up on her ebooks. There's the website down into there. What is pictured are all the materials, and she even provides for you that white sheet of paper. You print it out, which gives you all the diameters and where you're going to put your holes and things like that. Beautiful piece of work of what she has done. I don't have a reference in here to show you the things by Jock Gill. He also does his things that are very small. These are very, very small types of stoves like that. And of course, here is a typical kettle grill, and underneath it is a TLUD providing the heat for cooking. This was out at Nesby. This was one of our Chab camps that we did. This is a McLaughlin thing. That's his kneecaps and shoes there, all right? But you're using the heat. The stoves, we talk about using the heat, and they happen to make biochar. Now, we want to get past that up into other sizes of things. The Champion stove, which is outside there on it. I should have brought it in here, but it's sitting out on the shelf out into there. There's the one that Paul Taylor has here, the stainless steel one made in India, and it's functional. It does a nice job with it. The Moto stove done in Uganda. The major difference between these is that in Uganda, the project people wanted the stove, the pot to sit on top of the stove, as opposed to the pot sitting on a stove structure, and then the TLUD comes in and out underneath. That is nothing to do with the making of the char or the TLUD combustion migratory front or anything. It is all part of stove structure, and you can get rid of it. You can do what you want with it, and that's probably where more money is spent on those aspects of the stove than the other ways. The Quad 3 3.2 stove is one that I have in my car. We're going to make it out there at the site tomorrow. How many of you are wanting to do the hands-on? You're going to make this stove out there tomorrow. Got 3, 4, 5, 6. Fine. We're under control. Everybody can come by and see what we're doing. And it is designed to be flat packed. That's how I have so many of them in my car. And we make these tabs and the slots. The horizontal pieces have slots. The cylinders give us a set of tabs and bring it together. This is not IKEA. This is not just snap it together so easy. This is why I just don't I mean, I'm not going to have this thing on the shelf at Home Depot. Oh, go home and make yourself a stove. There's some work still to do it. We're not that refined with it all. And it has no rivets and stuff, and I'm not worried about that. There are other cook stoves of the TLUD style. This one is out of Indonesia. I can criticize all kinds of stoves. I won't put it down in writing, but I mean, this stove lacks a chimney, a small little riser to get the draft going, and therefore it is weaker. I mean, these are discussions I can go with you about how you can make something go and things like that. If you're at higher elevations above 1,500 meters, you're going to need more riser. Lots of little tidbits and stuff of how to make it go. There is a rice husk gasifier. It does require a fan in it. This is the one by Alexis Bolonio of the Philippines, who is the originator of this, figuring out things which we thought weren't done. And you see that color of that flame, or the lack of color in that flame on the right-hand picture. It is, I mean, this is a characteristic of rice husks. It is not just of the stove got made better that way. Tom Reed's wood gas camp stove, they're out and around. There's a few of those about. And there's a picture now several years old of a variety of these things. Do not think that there's only one style, one type. The whole top row on that diagram are all with fans. And fans are becoming important. Let's move up to the 5-gallon bucket TLUDs. And this is one also done. This one has 2 5-gallon buckets on the left-hand side. And you notice the small blower down at the bottom. So this is a forced air unit. This is what TLUD-FA means. It means forced air or fan assisted, as opposed to -ND, which is natural draft. And you can really make some fire and things going. So we'll have some fun tonight and tomorrow with regard to these types of things. The Toucan Flex, which is a Hugh McLaughlin specialty. I don't have a picture, but it's here and it's out there for the show and for doing a few things with it. And so you'll be able to see that. It's in the 5-gallon bucket size and natural draft. That is related to, this is making it larger. This is an institutional stove in Uganda. The cooking pot is 2 feet in diameter, more than 2 feet in diameter, and you're making up a 40 liters, 50 liters of food in there and cooking them. But underneath it, we're able to slide in the TLUD gasifier, the larger size. This is not the small little cook stove. This is like the 5-gallon bucket, but it is for cooking. The fact is, it also makes the biochar. So we want to have this as the preferred type of stove for the thousands of institutions which need cooking assistance overseas in different places, okay? So the 5-gallon bucket with a continuous feed operation here. This is the Estufa Finca by Art Donnelly. It's down in Costa Rica. The bottom line says it's being redesigned. Yes, because it has some inherent difficulties in it that I'm working on, that Hugh's working on. We're all friends of Art Donnelly. We've been to Costa Rica. We'll be going down there again and assisting on it. And that is all going to be available to everybody here. Basic difference is you can start this off as a TLUD mode, and once the fire has reached the bottom, the pyrolytic front is at the bottom, air coming in is going to strike charcoal. There is no more pyrolysis down there. You're burning some char. But if you limit your air, that air will send heat up through there, and if you throw in extra fuel on the top, that fuel will dry, it will torrefy, and it will pyrolyze, and it will give you the same basic gases. But believe me, it is in an anoxic, meaning no oxygen present in that area. It is sort of retorting at the top of this pile of the char that was in there. The difficulty of this situation is it's not a batch that you can just throw in a whole bunch and walk away for a long time. You have to go back and fuel it depending on the type of fuel, the diameters and things like that. But it is continuous until The whole bucket is now so full with the charcoal that's been created in it that you can't get any more wood in, so then you do have to stop and you have to empty it out. So this is a different flavor from moving on from the TLUD design. Things which are starting off as TLUDs, and once the pyrolysis front has reached the bottom, they are not TLUDing, they are doing an updraft gasification and stuff like that. One of my where I am evolving, okay? I'm learning this stuff. I've been on this thing for 12 years, and I learn stuff every week, every month. It's surprising, okay? The a biomass grill from Chip Energy, and it had the same type of thing as the Art Donnelly, and you can put fuel in. The right-hand side of it, underneath the red cross handle, is a crank and a fuel bin, and you could turn and put fuel down in, and it works the same way, but it's overly heavy. It's not in production anymore. Concepts are there, things are possible, depends on what you want and how you're going to do it. Okay, I have one comment that relates to the barrel size or oven things, which I don't think that Carl Frogner has in his presentation, and that is where you have and I didn't get a picture put in there, it is a 55-gallon drum with no bottom on it. And the result is, after you run the TLUD operation, as you'll see in what his presentation is, you pick it up, take off the top and stuff, you pick it up, and all the char stays in the pit where it was being done. And then you can bury it, or however you want to extinguish it. And so you never have to tip over the barrel. Is it foolproof? No. It's another element that probably has to just be coming into there. So I am going to turn, I have a couple minutes for questions, and I've gotten within my time, and then we'll proceed on with the Dr. Frogner's presentation on the barrel size ovens. He'll have his own introduction, and then the farm size 1 to 7 cubic meter, that's Paul Taylor's. Questions? Yes.
You said that more primary air leads to higher temperature. Does that necessarily mean it has better char, or just as it changes the characteristics between the lower temperature and higher temperature?
In a TLUD stove, when the pyrolysis is occurring halfway down or lower down, the gases which are made have to pass through the char which was created before that. And we are getting, and it's not desirable, a deposition, an absorption, a taking up of some of those gases, impurities and stuff into the char that was created. If you're putting in a faster fire and stuff so that you're actually got that, the whole bed of char is just so hot that these gases cannot recondense onto the char which comes out of it will be appreciably a little bit cleaner. And the other side of it is, if you're cranking up that air and the temperature, you're not pyrolyzing at 450, 500, you might be pyrolyzing at 600, 650. And you measure those, and that's in the paper. All biochars are not created equal. We've shown, we didn't quantify it all, but I mean, we've got the indications there. Yes, sir?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these designs have a fairly consistent, within a range diameter to height ratio. Would you foresee a problem having a really tall, narrow TLUD? Would you be able to maintain a level burn line?
Okay.
As it got taller?
Depends on the type of fuel that you have. If you have a good consistent fuel and you've got a good airflow going through it, because if it starts getting waffly and stuff like that, it could probably do it. And you can certainly double the height in relation to this ratio of what you've got, and it will. Height relates to how long it will burn. Diameter relates to how much energy is going to come off of it, given a certain amount of air coming through for those square centimeters of surface area. So a big one, I mean, Alex English made one which was 46 inches in diameter. I mean, gigantic, but he had a problem with it didn't pyrolyze downward uniformly and everything else. I mean, this is the largest one, and he has not followed through with that.
Stand up for your questions, please.
Yes, you can make it longer. You can make it taller. And how tall? Don't know, but in terms of most things, the human height of standing up and functioning probably dictates table height and stuff like that. there was some, yes.
I'll just answer the question. In the early days of the stove lids, there was a farmer in Iowa who heated a barn with, my recollection, maybe 20 feet in a TLUD design. It
Yeah.
burned all night.
Okay, my concern was just like whether or not eventually the burn line might, taper down to one edge.
I don't know how big it was. but that's-
Let me clarify
that's
this. There's
problem.
not a problem of it being not perfectly horizontal. What is the problem is if one side, because of air channeling, burns so fast and then it burns over and comes up under. And you're no longer top lit and burning down like a candle, you're able to put a fire under. Now you've created a downdraft gasifier, and that tends to create enormous amounts of smoke.
It's not downdraft, it's all going still up.
It's that geometry we see in a downdraft where the fire is at the bottom and the fuel's above it and the air is getting pushed past.
And you go through that, and the first of the heat goes for drying the fuel. So you got a lot of moisture in it. And then it goes over the torrefaction, and then suddenly you got all this combustible stuff through, and you lose control. I'm being less sensitive about this thing coming down the side. Sometimes you can shake it, and the char settles. It's all getting smaller inside and can fill in the gaps, just so you don't end up with a channel racing up through. But I believe that there is some pyrolysis which is actually sort of laterally going through it. It's not as nice as having that one, surface area which is going down uniformly. Now you've got something else, but in general, if it doesn't happen real early, it does finish appropriately. It can happen that way. The one thing you do have to watch out for is, say, for example, one large block of wood down near the bottom, because it will not pyrolyze to its middle when everything else around it is pyrolyzed, and it's going to keep giving you that little bit of smoke, and not enough to sustain the whole thing. And when you go to put it out, you got this one burning ember, and it's going to give you smoke, and so you don't want to do that. But otherwise, it's pretty good. Yes.
Well, I'm going to stay on schedule, and that's because first off, when we end at 12:50, we have 25 minutes before the plenary session even tries to start. We're going down perhaps this evening to Nestle to do things, and tomorrow. So there's a lot of questions that follow because you're into actually learning how to do something, and we can't get to the end of that learning curve. So at this time, I'd like to hand an applause.
DrTLUD.com, and we're putting things out there. Glad to help you in anything if you want.